Hello everyone, welcome back to the channel, or if it's your first time here, welcome. So please subscribe and like the video and all that sort of good stuff. Today we're going to be discussing the differences between Spotify and Tidal, but more importantly, why I personally feel you should move from Spotify over to Tidal. The main one being the artist streaming payouts. Most of the time when people talk about these videos, they just go, here's a few different streaming platforms and here's the differences, rah, rah. Whereas like I'm sort of coming from a little bit more of a ethical kind of standpoint, obviously being an artist myself, because recently I put out a story on Instagram just saying, oh, hey, I use Tidal over Spotify, with the long and short being that Spotify's payouts are egregiously small compared to Tidal's, which are 3 times as much. And we'll look at that in just a second. And not only were people getting back to me saying like, oh yeah, I haven't heard of Tidal, I'll give it a crack. And in some cases going, oh, this is great. Most people not even being aware of just how bad these streaming payouts are. So I thought, okay, well, let's create like a bit of a wider discussion around this thing. And that is the point of this video. It's not just to be like, oh, here's my final word and every last little fact on it. It is to kind of create an ongoing discussion around this issue because, like, yes, it is a highly competitive and tough industry to be in, but I think there are a lot of things that can be done quite a lot better. So I do want to make my biases and motivations clear up front when discussing this stuff, although, I do want to be fair because Tidal has its shortcomings as well. So, and I also want to add that I just want to be clear that as an artist, I'm not saying you shouldn't upload your music to Spotify. Of course, it is a very large platform with a wide reach, hence they weaponize that ability to make the payouts so terrible. But nonetheless, I feel competition is a good thing in the marketplace considering the size of Spotify's market share. Now, I'm sure everyone knows what Spotify is, but just very quickly, for those who aren't familiar, what is Tidal? So some of you might remember like a number of years ago, Tidal did this kind of cringy PR launch where you had like Jay-Z and like all these other famous artists around in a boardroom, and it's like, oh, we're gonna have this artist-owned, streaming platform, and it's all gonna be this, everything's gonna be equitably distributed and blah, blah, blah. And in the end, it was just like another streaming platform. But in the long haul, at least the payouts were a lot better. So just very quickly, let's have a look at these payouts before we move on. So here, this is from producerhive.com. We have this chart here that shows all of the payouts. Would you know it? We've got other platforms that manage to be worse than Spotify. And here is Spotify over here with $0.000318 per stream. And over here we have Tidal with $0.01284 per stream. So 3 times as much. And down here we have like a few facts about music industry revenues and all those kinds of things. I would say the larger point is the fact that as unprofitable for artists anyway, as recorded music has been for such a long time, the amount of overall money that is in the industry is higher than ever. Now, granted, the payouts tend to be a bit more complex because of, the deals that artists have with labels and, how things are distributed amongst rights holders and all things like that. And for example, people who self-release their music tend to be a lot happier with their payouts, but I think they'd probably be a lot happier if those payouts were 3 times as much. Even down here, just underneath, it says the greatest musicians in the world are rarely in it for the money, and there's a lot of truth in that. However, this is still a business. This requires a lot of time and resources to create these things that people enjoy. And at the same time, these careers they're very much front loaded. So in terms of, say, all the time and expense leading up to even producing the music itself. Anyway, let's move on. Let's talk about some of these actual differences. So I think probably the big key consideration I think most people think about when picking a service is the music selection. So I think most people would be concerned about whether or not Tidal is going to have as much selection compared to, say, Spotify. Now, me personally, I have found this at this point in time, end of 2022, to be a borderline non-issue. I did find when I moved across that there was, I would say for me personally, single-digit albums that I couldn't find, and some of those for reasons being such as not being available on any streaming platform. There's that as well. A solution there can be just getting something like Bandcamp, where a lot of independent artists release their music, which is great because even more money goes to the artist and you can just use their app just like any other streaming app. And when it comes to new releases, these are going straight to Tidal anyway. And I've also found over time, older albums that I couldn't track down, I would later notice them pop up over time. So labels and artists are constantly releasing back catalogs on Tidal. And added to that, there are quite big artists that aren't even releasing their catalogs on Spotify. Granted, the incentives tend to be different, but nonetheless, Spotify isn't exactly perfect in that regard either. Now, just quickly on the note of moving from one platform to the next, because you might be looking at this and going, well, yeah, maybe Tidal is like a little bit better, but you know, I've got all my albums and playlists and all this stuff saved, and it's like, am I gonna have to start from scratch? No, you're not. Yes, you can transfer everything across in one hit, so that is a non-issue. So let's have a look at what both of them offer and the pricing on top of that. So let's start with Spotify. Spotify, we have the individual plan. So both platforms have a freemium model. I haven't used Tidal's freemium model, but to my eye, it seems that it's a similar sort of thing where it's like they have ads and, you know, you can't necessarily, you know, just pick and choose exactly, you know, what you want. It's more like a radio. But the individual plan is $12. These are Australian dollars. And obviously it removes the ads. Listen to whatever you want, whenever you want, blah, blah, blah. Including offline playback. And you've got these different plans for 2 people, a family, and a student discount as well. If we go over to Tidal, their premium plan is known as Hi-Fi. Now, previously, this was almost indistinguishable from Spotify. This is also at $12 a month. Except a couple of years ago, they included their hi-fi quality music into their premium model. So into their $12 a month premium model, which is fantastic because now they have created a point of difference. And let me tell you that it is a noticeable jump in quality. Like I've noticed it straight away. I've shown it to other people. Like, you know, you can 100% tell the difference, and I feel like it's worth it. I feel like having something, the better the quality gets, the more immersive the music is, the more you can hear the different things that are going on. So, and the fact that you can pay the same, but just get this fantastic audio quality as a music streaming app, I think that puts it in front by quite a lot. Now, we've also got on top of that Hi-Fi Plus. So they've got another tier above that. This is $24 a month. So yes, it's double. I have switched to this recently. So now this has their master quality. So you've got like high, you know, so in the app, you've got like normal quality, which is, you know, just low, maybe just, you know, if you don't want to use up too much of your data, then high quality, then hi-fi quality, and then you've got master quality. So this is their format known as MQA. I've seen online a bit of debate around just how lossless, you know, this is compared to like say FLAC and other formats. I'm not in that kind of territory as far as being an audiophile is concerned, but me personally, this was another jump again. It was as if I could just turn the music up as loud as I wanted and it just sounded perfect. Like, and hearing even more stuff. There was no bad frequencies anywhere. I found this to be well worth it. So granted, it's, you know, $24 a month. So that's, you know, that's a lot more than say someone would be used to spending, but I can tell you I spend a lot more than that on CDs per month. I found it to be quite easy to justify. And granted, you probably want some fairly decent headphones to make the most of it as well. So, and once again, I think it's a worthy investment. Like if you're cruising around, using $10 earbuds and, just listening to low quality music, I recommend trying this. So as we saw, Spotify has a 3-month trial period. This has a 1-month trial period. I think you'll pretty much get the gist of it. In that sense, you've got nothing to lose. And, you might be like, I don't care, about the sound quality. So that's up to you. But I think it's fantastic. A lot of to me, it's almost like rediscovering music. Another thing that this has is these direct artist payouts, which I think is interesting. The more I think about this, the more it's, first I'm like, this is amazing. So here, up to 10% of your subscription is directed to the artists you listen to the most, which is very democratic. So this is what would be referred to as a user-centric model, where like whatever you listen to, that money is directed towards the people that you listen to. Whereas Spotify and all streaming platforms use the pro rata royalty distribution method, which is all the money goes into a pool and then that gets divvied out depending on, streams and whatnot. And I can actually, I can see cases for both, but I think I have to wonder but how does it look when it scales and things like that. But I think that needs to be a whole separate video, because I think it involves maths, and that's not my strong suit. And track and share how your listening habits impact your favorite artists. So which sounds nice. It almost sounds like as if you're sponsoring a child in a third world country. What the fuck? This is where we are. Down here, we've got a family plan and a student plan as well, and a couple of extra notes. So this is the thing I mentioned before, this thing about importing playlists and whatnot from other streaming services. So a couple of critiques of Tidal that I've come across, more so from other people. One of them was device handover. So for example, you're listening on your laptop, whatever, and then you want to basically pick up where you've left off on your phone. I do recall this with Spotify that, it's quite seamless, whereas someone reported back to me that they found it to be sort of, I'm not sure whether it just didn't do it very well or it was just quite cumbersome. Now, I think if, say you have a job where you're working at your computer for a bit and then you've got to get up and go do something and then come back and then blah, 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 and you're doing that a lot across the day, I could see that being, being quite frustrated, not so much an issue for myself. So that would just be, a judgment call that you'd have to make. And the other one is the podcasts. I've had a bit of a flick through. The podcast feature on Tidal is not fantastic. I mean, I've always had a separate app for podcasts anyway, and I use Pocket Casts, which works just fine. So it doesn't really make much of a difference to me. And these kinds of things are the kinds of compromises that, I'm sort of willing to make. It's a lot like spending a bit more money because you want to support a small business and keep that money circulating within your local economy, for example. And anything else where it just simply aligns with your values. So this kind of stuff is really important to me. And let's not forget Daniel Ek's 100 million euro investment in AI defense technology as well, which is not great. And this also ties in with just the platform in general, how it's being expanded into podcasts and video and investing heavily in that. You've got all this money that's being removed from music, this art form that essentially, grew this platform, and it's being taken away and invested in all this other stuff and things you might not necessarily agree with. This is really at the core of it about getting artists more money. And even if you think boycotts don't work or, whatever, there's plenty of discussion to be had about how many people would have to leave Spotify for it to be effective. I'm not even really concerned about that because I know that I'm getting a better product with Tidal anyway. And whoever I'm listening to is getting a lot more money. And there are a lot of people out there who are very much interested in how they can help artists get more money. So, because we didn't get into this to be t-shirt salesmen, for example. But please, like, don't misunderstand me. Like, if you think Spotify works better for you and you just don't want to change over, that's fine. Like, you know, like, no judgment whatsoever. Like, you have, you know, every right to do with your money what you want. Same like, and it's the same with, like, you know, like Daniel Ek spending all that money on defense technology. It's like he can do whatever he wants with his money, and so can I. In the same way, it's like, you know, I'm a vegetarian. If we go out for dinner, you order a steak, I don't care. It does not bother me in the slightest. I'm just here to just inform you of a way that you can help out artists better. Here are the two platforms, what they present, but at the end of the day, they both offer free trials. So go nuts, try it all out, see for yourself. At the end of the day, that's what it's all about. But as I said at the very beginning, this is about creating an ongoing discussion. So please, like, if you disagree with me at all, maybe I'm flat out wrong about something, but I don't intend for this to be the last video I have on the subject. I'm very interested to see what other people think about it. So by all means, leave a comment with your thoughts. Have you used both or one or the other? Are there some other things that perhaps I'm missing, the good and bad of both platforms? Like I said, despite my bias and my feelings on the subject, I certainly don't want to present any inaccurate information at all. Anyway, if you've made it this far, thank you so much for sticking with it. I hope you would at least give things a try with Tidal and let me know how you go. But otherwise, please like the video and subscribe to the channel. Thanks for your time, and I'll see you in the next one.